again, All-American team. Good to spend some time with you guys. Matthew Clark again, and I have the privilege of being able to close out the series that we have been working on lately called the Pyramid Illustration. So I'll give you a quick recap of what John started off with us, but I also encourage you guys to go back and watch any of the videos that you may have missed because it's a great illustration. So this comes out of 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 through 8. His divine power has granted to us all things that pertain to life and godliness, through the knowledge of Him who called us to His own glory and excellence, by which He has granted to us His precious and very great promises, so that through them you may be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped from the corruption that is in the world because of sinful desire. For this very reason, make every effort to supplement your faith with virtue, and virtue with knowledge, and knowledge with self-control, and self-control with steadfastness, and steadfastness with godliness, and godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love. For if these qualities are yours and are increasing, they keep you from being ineffective or unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. And this is the way that we have been approaching this series, is as we build these things intentionally into our lives, what does that look like? And the purpose is so that it will keep us from being unfruitful and unproductive, ineffective or unfruitful in our knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. So I get to close this out talking about brotherly love and love, the last two qualities. They're closely linked, and I want to talk about how they're linked, but also how they're separate and what that means for us. So let's get some definitions. Brotherly love, the Greek word and the context of brotherly love is the word phileo, which means like familial love, the love that you have for your family. That you might not always agree with them, but at the end of the day, they're still family. So you care for them because they're your family. The context that is used a lot, not necessarily in the Bible, but in Greek language, is loyalty. A loyalty that you have to someone or something. And then love, the word is agape, which means unconditional love, or loving someone because of who they are and sacrificing yourself for their best interests. So we want to take a look today on how those two loves play out. So we're going to take a look at Peter and Peter's, what I call Peter's training history. So we're going to start in Luke 5, which is the miracle of the fish with Jesus. But I think one of the interesting things to note is this is not the first engagement that the disciples have had with Jesus. And it's probably not the first time that they've gone fishing with him. So although this miracle happens, the call for Jesus to follow them, this is probably the second time that Jesus called him at least. So this isn't an unknown quantity. Like, they know who Jesus is. So in Luke 5 through 6, and Simon answered, Master, we toiled all night and took nothing, but at your word I will let down the nets. And when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. A couple of things to point out here about this is that Jesus was in the boat with the disciples, and when they pulled in the fish, there were so many that the nets were breaking. And I think this is a good illustration in that they were working hard, and the nets were breaking, they were losing some of the fish, and Jesus might have actually been helping them pull in the nets as well. And Jesus turns to them and then says, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. So that's where this started with Peter's relationship with Jesus. And I think as we see through Peter's life, he demonstrates a very fierce loyalty to Jesus. We could probably think of a lot of verses off the top of your head where Peter just firmly sets his foot down and says, I am loyal to Jesus. And that's the brotherly love, or the phileo, that we were talking about. So in Luke 22, we have the Last Supper. Jesus kind of pulls Peter aside and has this conversation with him in verse 31 through 34. He says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you, that we might sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Peter said to him, Lord, I am ready to go with you both to prison and to death. Jesus said, I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow this day until you deny 3 times that you know me. So again, we see just Peter is very staunch and very firm. He says, I am ready to go with you both to prison and to death. So the context that he's conveying is the phileo love. I am loyal to you because of whatever I think you represent or what you stand for or what you called us for. Whatever Peter's reasoning is, he is fiercely loyal to Jesus. And I think this is what Satan is asking to sift out. So Jesus tells Peter that Satan is asked to sift him, to shake him and see what falls out. Is Peter loyal to Jesus just out of loyalty and phileo, or does he actually love Jesus? Does he actually love Jesus because of who Jesus is and have a love for the world because of that? Because this is the person that Jesus is designated as the one who's going to carry on after he's gone. And so Satan wants to shake that up. I think one of the promises here, though, that's encouraging is that although this is going to happen, and Jesus says Peter is going to deny him 3 times, that is going to happen, it's a fact. He says, but when you have turned back, strengthen the brothers. So he promises that Peter is going to come back. And his charge is, once you've come back, encourage and strengthen everybody else. So we know that Peter then does deny him 3 times. And then we finally have a conversation again in John 21 where Jesus comes back and reconciles Peter. But what's interesting to note is that this is the 2nd time probably that Peter has seen Jesus, or 3rd time he's seen him. He's seen him twice prior. And the 3rd time he's necessarily been around Jesus doing something. So in John 27 is Peter at the tomb, and then John 20:19 and 20:26, Jesus appears to the disciples while they're eating, and presumably Peter is here as well. So imagine putting yourself in Peter's shoes, that you have staked your life on your loyalty to Jesus for whatever reason. Whether he's going to overthrow the Romans, be a conquering king, whatever reason, you have staked your loyalty to this man, and then you deny him 3 times. So already there's probably some anxiety, fear, shame, whatever. And then you see Jesus twice, 2 other times, and you don't have a conversation with him. So imagine how that probably hits Peter, in that Jesus seemingly ignores him, or doesn't have a conversation with him, or doesn't forgive him or re-engage him. So Peter finally says, you know what, I'm going to go fishing. And this is when Jesus decides to re-engage him. So picking up in John 21, verses 4 through 11, says, just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? They answered him, no. He said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in, because of the quantity of fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved therefore said to Peter, it is the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. The other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, but about 100 yards off. When they had got out on land, they saw a charcoal fire in place, with fish laid out on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish that you have caught. So Simon Peter went aboard, hauled the net ashore full of large fish, 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. So I think there's a couple of things that we can pick apart here. But one is that this time Jesus is not in the boat, he's on the shore. And I think it's kind of a passing of a torch of Jesus' promise that if you follow me, I will make you fishers of men. So when that first call was given, they had a large number of fish, but the nets were breaking and all the fish were getting away, or some of the fish. At this point, Jesus is on the shore, so he's not even in the boat with them, and they catch a large number of fish, but it says that they're all large fish. So picture like a big tuna or a salmon or whatever they have in the Sea of Galilee, but these are large fish, and they catch 153 of them, and the nets are not breaking this time. So symbolically, it's kind of a passing of the torch of what Jesus promised that he would do for them, and then passing on what Jesus wanted to continue for them to do spiritually. And after this takes place, he then finally has his conversation with Peter. In verse 15 through 18, it says, "When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, 'Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?' He said to him, 'Yes, Lord, you know that I love you.' And he said to him, 'Feed my lambs.' He said to him a second time, 'Simon, son of John, do you love me?' He said to him, 'Yes, Lord, you know that I love you.' He said to him, 'Tend my sheep.' He said to him the third time, 'Simon, son of John, do you love me?' Peter was grieved because he had said to him the third time, 'Do you love me?' And he said to him, 'Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you.' Jesus said to him, 'Feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go.'" So I think there's a lot of things. This is where we really want to dig in. There's a lot of things here. But I think the first thing that is interesting is Jesus asked Peter if he loved Jesus, not if he loved the sheep or he loved the people. So Jesus was passing on the ministry to Peter, and he commissioned Peter to take care of his sheep, but he didn't ask Peter if he loved the sheep. He asked Peter, "Do you love me?" What's interesting is the first two times Jesus says, "Peter, do you agape me? Do you love me because of who I am? And are you willing to sacrifice yourself for my best interest and to bring my kingdom to people?" And Peter's response is, "Lord, you know that I'm loyal to you." So Jesus literally says, "Peter, do you love me for who I am?" And Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know that I'm loyal to you." So we kind of see the difference in the thinking and the questions there. Jesus asks if Peter loves unconditionally, regardless of what happens and regardless of what had happened. And Peter responds with loyalty and familial love. So Jesus, and then in the third time, Jesus finally does say, "Peter, are you truly loyal to me?" And Peter says, "Yes, you know that I am." So Jesus was asking if Peter loved him, then to take responsibility for the flock. Take responsibility for feeding and tending the sheep. And we do see, starting in Acts 1:15, that Peter does do that, but this is a key pivotal moment. So now let's bring this back to the pyramid illustration, where we're trying to build these things into our life. And so I think if you look at the illustration up to this point, all of these things are kind of internal, that we build godliness, we build self-control, we build faith in our life. But most of those are all internal. And when we get to brotherly love and love, the only way those can be expressed is externally, to other people. So Peter says, build brotherly love. First, we have to build a love for our family. Or have a loyalty to the people that we're rubbing shoulders with. So, the people in our community, the people that we're doing Bible study with, the people that we're fighting alongside, these are the people that we develop a familial relationship with. And because they're our family, we have a loyalty to them. Now, that's kind of the idea of brotherly love. We love because they're our family. And because they're our family, we have loyalty to them. So first we need to build on that. That needs to be a foundation that we trust and we love the people that we're trying to do this with. Then add a love for the world. So it starts with our family, with our Jerusalem, then it expands out to Samaria and the ends of the earth. And how do we love the world? How do we develop that love for other people? I think it's not because of the people, because all of us are broken and sinful in this world. But we love because of who Jesus is. And then as I love Jesus because of who Jesus is, I want to sacrifice myself for what is best for other people, which is bringing Jesus and his kingdom into other people's lives. And as I do that, I'm loving because of Jesus, and I'm bringing Jesus to them, and I'm exemplifying who Jesus is. So first we develop brotherly love, then we add on top of that love for the world. Let's look at another verse on how these two are linked. In 1 Peter 1:22 says, having purified your souls by your obedience to the truth, for a sincere brotherly love, love one another earnestly from a pure heart. So because these people have purified their souls by obedience, because they have fought for this purification, they have developed a brotherly love for each other. So as they're rubbing shoulders, as they're fighting, a natural consequence is they develop a brotherly love. Just like we naturally develop a camaraderie with our platoon or with our company as we endure hardship. So since they have endured these things to purify their soul, they have a brotherly love, a familial relationship, a loyalty to each other. Because of that, now love one another earnestly from a pure heart. Now accept the world because of who Jesus is. Accept people, show them Jesus, sacrifice your will for them to bring them Jesus because of who Jesus is, not because of who people are. Actually caring for what is best for people, not just because they're family. So as Peter is talking about building these things in our life, he says, first, we need to develop a love for our family. Because if we can't love those who are closest to us, we're never going to be able to love the rest of the world. And then as we grow in our love for our family, then we're continually looking at Jesus, and now we love people because of who Jesus is. And that extends for the love for the world. So those are the two last blocks of the pyramid illustration. That's what we're trying to build towards. And I think as you think through this, we're building these things into our life so that we're looking at Christ more. We're looking at Jesus for who Jesus is. And then when we get to that love and we're building that love, then ultimately we're letting Jesus work through us, shine through us, and we're bringing him to people around us. So Jesus living in us and through us, that is what is going to keep us ineffective and unfruitful in our life, in ministry. So one of the things we can take away from this is as we look at Peter, Peter had a hard life trying to struggle through these things. Just read back his life and the constant struggle and the battle between does he love Jesus, does he not love Jesus, is he loyal to him, does he actually care about who he is. Peter struggled with this a lot. And I only pulled out a couple of verses, but we can take that as our example, and hopefully we can build these things in our life without having to go through all the trials and the struggles that Peter had.